Tom Hackett, Jake Simons here. Welcome in to the broadcast, if you will, University Federal Credit Union. We say thank you dearly. All right, for those that don't know, which I think would be few and far between, but our good friend Jake Simons is one of the members of the beloved RSL Show Podcast hosts. In fact, are you officially the founder, Jake?
Yeah, Josh and I are.
You and Josh, so co-founders.
Yeah.
Of the RSL show. Very cool. Hey, and you've had great insight, by the way, into this entire Dell Loy Hansen. We'll call it a scandal because I guess, technically is a scandal. And you've been at the forefront. In fact, I saw you on the Channel 5 News the other night. That was neat. I thought you did a great job. But we're going to talk really all things Dell Loy, the decision today to announce a pending sale. What you've learned from that. But I guess we'll start, Jake, with obviously I think most people that are tuning in, and by the way, if you are tuning in, feel free to comment. We'll answer any questions you have. But I think most people understand how it all came about. There was some comments made on a radio station. What was that, Thursday morning? Essentially, Dell Loy stated his disappointment for the game not being played the night prior against LAFC Wednesday evening, and then a few things happened. Long story short, an article basically came out from The Athletic at about, I want to say like 4 or 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon, early evening. And that's kind of where things got really interesting. Moments after that, the league stated that they have commenced an immediate investigation into the report, as well as the comments he made on radio and his past track record. And essentially, the rumor was inside this little circle that you and I both belong, that he wasn't going to survive. And long story short, I was on Mountain Dell 16th fairway when my phone started blowing up, and I was like, this is odd. You know, is my wife okay? Because she's normally the only one that'll call. And it wasn't. It was fellow colleagues and other people around town basically talking about this decision that Dell Loy has made. So how did we get here? Outside of the obvious, what do you know that transpired between Friday to Sunday morning? Is there anything noticeable?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are trying to understand what the decision-making process exactly. That said, there was an investigation pending. MLS had people coming in tomorrow to begin an investigation. And we think that investigation may have led to more things coming to the surface because there's not as much pressure to put your name in an article in the newspaper when it's an internal investigation. So that investigation was supposed to cover current and former employees in and around Utah Soccer LLC, which is the organization that owns Real Salt Lake, the Utah Royals, and Monarchs. So the thought that we all have, and this hasn't been verified in any way because no one can find out, is that those investigations may have been the tipping point. And frankly, like it sounds like Dell Loy realized that it was time to get out while he still could, to make some money from it, frankly, which he's going to make a lot of money from the sale of these teams. And now it's time for somebody else to step up to the plate.
Am I correct in understanding that he will likely make more money selling privately himself as opposed to potentially selling to the league?
Yeah, I mean, we have every indication that if the league were to take the team, which is ostensibly what it would be, they would be looking to make a profit on it. So it makes sense for Dell Loy to try and sell or to sell while he can get the most return for his money that he's invested. There's also the outside chance that it's just trying to get out in front of the investigations a little bit and avoid the further besmirching of his reputation in the community. He owns dozens of companies and interacts with people and corporations here in the Valley and in the Intermountain West regularly. So there's a certain amount of saving face, I think. We have heard that there are a couple other things that are coming out in the next few days outside of the investigations. So that will be interesting. And I don't think it's over. I think for a while, maybe even until a sale is finalized, more people will speak up and more stories will be told about how Real Salt Lake and other Dell Loy Hansen owned organizations have been run.
Well, my brother-in-law is one individual who works for a Dell Loy Hansen company, and he admitted that he was rather nervous as to how this was going to play out and whether or not it would affect the business that he works for. And so you must assume that Dell Loy wanting to sell and hopefully and potentially, I guess, not have the investigation continue, if you will. Maybe that was his train of thought. Maybe that was a reason why. He owns a lot of companies here in the state of Utah. I don't have the exact number. I've heard, upwards of, 40, 50 companies, something quite ludicrous. And so this is something with an investigation pending that he's probably sitting back, him and his wife, Julie, are probably sitting back now. If all of this does come to fruition and we are found guilty of saying this, that, and the other, how will this affect not just Utah Soccer LLC, but the 40, 50 other companies that we currently own? So it does make sense. Let's move forward. So since the news at about 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning, there have been a number of individuals that have spoken as to their interest in the team. And before we get to that, I do want to ask, do you know if this is going to be a package sale, or is there a chance that the Monarchs, Royals, and Real Salt Lake could potentially get split up? Because the reason I bring this up, JJ Watt expressed interest in the Royals in particular, but I was under the understanding this was going to be kind of a package deal.
Yeah, right now, I believe it is Utah Soccer LLC, the company that is for sale, and its associated properties, right? So that would include all three teams. What I think is interesting is the idea of a group of individuals coming in, including people like JJ Watt, Josie Altador, Nick Raimondo, Donovan Mitchell, and putting a group of people together who are passionate about maybe one of the teams or all of the teams, and that group's money to buy the teams from Dell Loy. You're talking in the hundreds of millions of dollars realm for all three. So the likelihood that it gets split up is probably pretty low, unless there is not significant interest in paying, hundreds of millions of dollars for all three teams. I think the bigger fear would be that someone comes in and buys all three teams and then potentially shuts one or two of them down. I don't know. I don't think that will be the case. But that's going to be in the conversation for sure with whoever buys the organization as the whole.
And I guess last question relating to, sorry to cut you off, Jake. Last question before we kind of move forward is, everything's involved, right? So the stadium, obviously the club rights, but what about the training facility? Is that a part of all of this, or is that going to be a separate agreement between Mr. Hansen and whoever buys?
I think you'd have to include it along with the academy, as it is all, again, under that same corporate umbrella. It also makes it a much more tantalizing offer to have the property in Harriman and the stadium, as well as the satellite campuses, included in the deal. If I'm Mr. Hansen and I'm getting out of this, I want to get every penny that I possibly can. I think it would be very unlikely for him to hold on to the Zebra in Harriman and like the high school and the academy and the new basketball academy even, to do what with? To partner with Real Salt Lake on player signings? I just don't see that as a viable option.
I'm with you. Hey, who are you hearing has the most interest right now, do you think? Do you have any idea, or are you kind of just guessing like myself?
I mean, I'm going to keep that one a little bit. I think there's some things that are in the lead for sure. I have my personal opinion on which would be best. I will say, I think it's critical that you have someone who's willing to invest money over multiple years to put this club back on the right path. Someone local would be ideal, or with ties to this community. And then somebody who's got a proven history of running businesses and especially sports and entertainment businesses successfully. I think that it takes a very deft hand to run an entertainment company like a soccer team is, especially in the market that we live in, to both grow the team and the revenue. Like, we have to be honest, it is going to be years probably before a new owner turns a profit on this. So they have to be willing to dig in and invest in the long term.
Let's just assume, for argument's sake, that an out-of-state buyer purchases the organization. How confident are you that the organization will remain locally here in Utah? Are you pretty confident?
Very. Yeah, I don't think it goes anywhere. The people that I've had conversations with, just who've asked me that question, if you think about it, say that the purchase is in the vicinity of $350 million. The stadium's probably worth about 100, and to build that stadium right now is probably closer to 300 million. And then you've got the academy that's about $100 million, plus all of the infrastructure, plus the fan base. You're looking at $1 billion investment to move this team to Phoenix or Las Vegas, that are kind of the other viable markets in the near vicinity, in the vicinity. I just don't think that happens. I think MLS will specifically find buyers and vet those buyers that are interested in keeping the team in Salt Lake.
Well, we sure hope so. Hey, Jake, it is Sunday afternoon. It's getting on. You're over at your folks. I'll let you be. But thank you so much for taking 12 odd minutes to just chat with us about all the chaos that's unfolding. Hey, how long do you think this lasts before we get a new team? Do you have any idea?
I'm hoping not very long. I think the groups that are interested are showing some promise. I know there are conversations that are happening today. I'd be surprised if we start hearing about front runners within the next week or so. Hopefully it's done within the month. I know that would be best for everyone involved.
Hey, I also know that you and the gang recorded the podcast earlier this afternoon. Is that out now, or is that going to be out shortly?
No, we have to do a minor bleepage on the podcast. Got a little heated. We did a crossover podcast with another RSL podcast. So we're working on editing. It'll either be out tonight or tomorrow morning. And then we're also working on some other stuff for tomorrow night's podcast that'll come out Tuesday morning.
That's exciting, man. I can't wait to listen. I'm sure many of the people watching this are feeling the same sort of way. Hey, enjoy the time with your family. Thank you for jumping on short notice on a Sunday. And I'm sure I'll speak to you sooner rather than later, Jake. Be well.
Chat soon. Bye.